Alright, so check out this dresser I'm going to be working on. This thing is really cool. It's a mid-century design, really heavy, the heaviest dresser I've ever had, and it's built really nicely. So we're actually going to keep this one, but it would be an amazing project to flip. I think this thing would sell really well. Now, when I get up close, you'll see this thing is really rough. I got it for 48 bucks last week, but I mean, this thing has a terrible finish on it. Some really deep gouges and scratches. So even if I were to try to do a 100-point restoration on it, make it look nice, it's not going to be worth it. I mean, this thing is really rough, but it's built solid, and I think I can make it look a lot better, so we're just going to keep it. So, you know, you have the 6 drawers here. They pull out real nice. They got really cool brass hardware, and it's actually, each piece is mounted separately. I thought that was kind of cool. Never seen anything quite like that. And then this door here is a little loose. I need to tighten it up. When you open it, there's 3 more drawers. So this is a really cool piece. Looks like it's, what is it, mainline by Hooker or Honer or Homer. I think it's Hooker. I haven't heard of that brand, but it is a nice piece. Solid wood, super duper heavy, and just looks really awesome. So the plan is to just smooth out the body with some Bondo after sanding all the old junky finish off of it. And I'm going to paint it semi-gloss white. And then the drawer faces, I'm going to sand all that finish off. And then I will add some stain to half the drawers. And then the others I'll leave natural. And then I'll clear coat everything with some poly. And get a really cool two-tone look. So I'll do the same thing to the drawers inside here. And then I will probably even do it to the face here with the different panels, a different color than the little parts that poke out. I think that should look pretty cool. Now, I have had comments in other videos. People don't like it when I paint old dressers like this. They say it looks like cheap IKEA stuff or, you know, whatever. But it is a really popular look that sells really well. Now, if this was a nice piece, I would not do it to it. But you see how rough this thing is. It's not worth a full restoration with, you know, finally finishing the wood and all that kind of stuff. So we're just going to make it look a lot better. We like that look of the white with the wood, so we're going to keep it. So anyway, this should be a pretty cool little project, so let me get started. Alright, so I finally got all that sanding done. It's pretty windy today. I got a little fuzzy thing on top of the camera. Hopefully the wind's not too annoying. But anyway, let me show you what I got done. This was a lot of work. It may not seem like it on video, but it was probably about a week's worth of afternoons getting all the sanding done. It took a long time. It's a big reason why I don't do full restorations. I don't even do full refinishing on dresser, or at least on pieces like this, because it just involves so much work, and I'm all about flipping furniture. I keep some of them, like this one I'm going to keep, but for the most part I flip. I buy really cheap beat up ones, and the amount of work it would take to get them back is not worth the money in return. Like this dresser right here, on an amazing day it might go for $200, at least the way I sell it through Craigslist or Facebook Marketplace, places like that, OfferUp, Let Go, those apps on the phone. You know, I just keep it real simple like that, and the prices just aren't that high. And people where I live don't pay a whole lot for furniture. So more than likely this is going to go between $100 and $150 if I were to sell it. Like I said, we're going to keep it, so I don't mind putting a little extra work into it. I thought it'd be interesting for the video. I'm just showing you that it does take a lot of work. For instance, this door right here was an entire afternoon just sanding that. It seemed kind of quick for the face here with the power sander, but once I had to get into the little insets here, I had to do those by hand with sandpaper. Then I went over them again with that aircraft stripper and steel wool to get rid of the stain, and that was a lot of work. That's what I normally try to avoid. It was the same thing with all the little details here. I sanded all that. It still doesn't look that great. It would take even more sanding if I wanted to refinish it, but I'm going to paint it so it's good enough. But that was a lot of sanding. That was almost a full afternoon just doing all those by hand. And then like the legs here, flat sections went easy, but then to get into all the little crevices here and in there, it took a lot of work by hand. And like I said, I'm all about flipping, kind of turning and burning a little bit. So with the prices I get, I have to do minimal work. So anyway, on this, because it was so rough, you saw how bad that top was. I did a ton of sanding on it, and I actually redid that top about 3 times to get it right. I started with 60 grit, which is extremely rough, but I wanted to tear through all that old finish and kind of level out this wood, get rid of most of the scratches. As you can see, most of them are gone. There's still a few that kind of show, but they're so thin, I don't think they're going to show through the paint. There's also a few spots right there. You can see where I put in a little Bondo and a couple little sections that were, you know, like a dent or even like a hole, and I filled those in and just took a ton of sanding. I finally got it done. I did 60 grit, then I upped it to 80, then 120, and then I finished it in 220. So now everything is really nice and smooth. But the problem is that the top is a veneer. So you can see I had to sand it so much that it started to wear through in a couple of sections there. Okay, same thing happened on the door here. You can see some of these edges I wore through the veneer. Same thing on these drawers right here, right in the corner I wore through. And I was just going to leave them wood. I was thinking about doing this in a 2-tone wood, but because of that I've changed my mind a little bit. So what I'm going to do is these insets are going to be stained, and then the part that pokes out, the edges in the back, are going to be painted gloss white. Okay. Then for these drawer faces, these centers are pretty good, although this one right here, that's a little divot. I need to get rid of the stain in there. I'll have to use the aircraft stripper and steel wool there as well. But anyway, I'm going to mimic this shape, this kind of bubbled out rectangle. I will do that here in the center, and that's going to be wood, and then the outer part is going to be that same gloss white that I'll do this section, okay? And that's for the 6 drawers right here. The 3 drawers here behind that door are solid wood with the cutouts, so these are just going to get stained. Then for the body, what I decided to do is a nice kind of light medium gray over the whole thing, and it should look pretty cool. And it'll be sitting on top of this wood base that I will stain as well. So I think overall it will look pretty awesome, but like I said, it was a ton of work, but I think it's going to be downhill from now. I don't think it'll be too tough. I got to go ahead and start getting the body primed and then figuring out how I'm going to finish the rest of it. So that's what I will do next. Alright, so while the stain is drying on the drawer faces, I went ahead, brought the dresser body in. Now that the primer's dry, I went over it real quick with a fine grit sanding sponge to make it nice and smooth, for a smooth surface for the paint. And I noticed that, I don't know if it quite shows in the video, but the dresser still has some wood grain showing. I mean, it's smooth, but I would like it to be even smoother than that. So what I'm going to do is actually brush on my paint here, which is a pretty cool color, a little bit lighter than the primer. It's a color called UFO. And anyway, I'm gonna brush it on nice and thick to kind of fill in some of that grain. And then I'll get rid of the brush strokes with my roller, just kind of smooth it out afterwards. Pretty simple, so let me get going on that. Alright, so I'm back outside. The stain is dry, so it's time to add some poly, some wipe-on poly and a satin. So I'll cover everything with that. The leg base right here, I'll put on probably 2 or 3 coats. It'll be good to go. I'm going to do the same thing on the door here, even though I only stain the insets and everything else is going to get painted white, I decided to go ahead and I'll just poly the entire thing to kind of help seal it in and keep it from bleeding through when I paint it. Alright, same thing with the drawer faces. The 3 here, you can kind of see they took the stain a little lighter, but they're going to be behind that door. I'm going to cover them with poly, 2 or 3 coats, they're good to go. These drawers are the ones that are going to get this pattern eventually in the center, and then everything else around that will get painted white. But I decided to go ahead, stain the entire thing, and I will poly the entire thing too. Again, for the same reason, to kind of seal it in. I think it'll help keep the paint from bleeding through the tape edges when I do my pattern later. So anyway, I'll start getting started on that next. Alright, so I got them all taped off, and I got some paper down here to keep overspray from getting all over the place. And what I'm going to do is put on some primer first, some flat white primer, and then I'll put on some semi-gloss white after this dries. Hopefully it'll go on smooth and actually dry. It was really cold today and it's pretty windy, so we'll see what happens. Put my first coat on really thin so that it doesn't bleed under the tape. Alright, so I got about 3 coats of primer on there now. Kept it thin. I don't think it bled. It should be pretty good. So now I'm going to go ahead and go with the paint, just semi-gloss white. It is a paint and primer, but I still like to use primer just in case. So anyway, hopefully this will turn out pretty cool. Alright, now while the semi-gloss white paint is drying, I'm going to go ahead and polish up all of the brass hardware. Hopefully it'll come out alright. I'll just use some Brasso, and got a little scratchy pad here. I've used a bunch, so it's actually pretty soft. And then I'll try to finish up with just a regular cloth, but see how this goes. Hopefully it'll work. If not, I might have to bust out the steel wool or really fine sandpaper, but hopefully this will be good enough. I think I saw someone mention one time that you can kind of let this sit on here for a while and then polish it out. So maybe I'll do that, because it's going to take a lot of work to get that off. So maybe it can kind of eat away while I'm putting some on the rest of them. Alright, so it's been taking a while with the Brasso and the little soft scratchy pads here. So I got ones that are a little scratchier and it's working pretty good. So here's the little trim that goes around the handles, and here's one after I've done it. So you can see it's really cleaning up, but it's very messy and it still is taking quite a while. I'm not a big fan of polishing brass pieces like this, but they should look pretty cool once they're all finished. Alright, and check it out. Here it is all finished. This thing turned out really cool. So I'm really happy with the color combo of that UFO gray. Just a nice medium, almost like a primer gray color, except as you can see it's a semi-gloss. And I sanded that top so much, I don't know if it'll show here, I think you can see it, but the wood grain pops through, which is a pretty cool effect. And you cannot tell that it used to have a lot of scratches and gouges and all that. It turned out really nice, so it's so much better than it used to be, which is pretty cool. And of course the sides were fine as is, so I just painted them up. They look pretty good. There's a couple spots here I should have filled in that I missed, but oh well, it'll be alright. And then of course the face of the drawers ended up turning out pretty cool. You can see that the door face took the stain a little bit lighter, like maybe 1 notch lighter than these others, but I think it looks alright. And then the legs there look pretty good with that old finish taken off and then just recoated in poly. Those look really nice. And then my paint job to cover up the bad edges turned out pretty good. It's a little bit wonky. If you look at it up close, you can kind of see it's a little wavy. See the line here kind of goes like that, but that's what you get for hand cutting, and it's not too bad. I mean, I used a pattern so they're all equally wavy, but it's similar to this. This is a little more squared off, but I decided to round them just a little bit because they're a little bit chunkier drawer faces, but I think it looked pretty good. And then of course the hardware cleaned up pretty well, except I was not able to get inside there very good. You can see it got like the middle, but the innards are just, they're all still really dirty. I tried getting it out, but I don't know. I probably should have spent even more time, but it took a few hours just to get them cleaned up. But they look pretty good. And then of course here, when you open these up, you can see they're a different shade of wood as well, but because they're closed up, I think it'll be all right. These turned out really nice. If I ever find another dresser with drawer faces like this, I'll just do the whole thing. I like that. Plus the little cutouts, I think look really good. They just slide open and works pretty awesome. So anyway, that's not too bad for a $48 dresser. Usually I go to the Habitat for Humanity Restore, which is where I picked this up, and their furniture is always way overpriced here in town. But this one, I guess because it was so beat up, it was only 48 bucks. And man, I made this thing look way better. So I think we are gonna keep it, but I'm very tempted to sell it now because I actually just found another dresser. So anyway, there we go. Turned out pretty cool.
Hey, thanks for checking out this video. I really appreciate that. If you liked it, go ahead and hit that thumbs up. That really helps get it out in front of other people that might like to check it out too. And if you haven't subscribed, be sure to do that to keep up with more videos. And if you want to see some other projects I have some here on the screen and down in the description below as well.